everyone, it's Jordan Robertson with Benzinga, and joining me today is David Sun, Principal of Cybersecurity at CohnReznick. Thanks so much for being here. How are you?
Good, Jordan. Thanks for having me.
Of course. To kick things off, can you give the viewers an overview of your company?
So yes, CohnReznick is a advisory tax accounting firm. We've been around for many years, and we're, I would say, top 20 in the country in terms of size. We have a nationwide reach as well as offices overseas in India and the Philippines.
Amazing. And how big of an issue are data leaks due to insiders?
Oh, they're a very big issue. Unfortunately, it's a quiet issue. What I mean by that is it's a big issue. Many companies experience it, but you don't hear about it because most organizations don't want to be publicized, and they try to keep it under wraps, and they usually address it internally or sort of without law enforcement and other public types of avenues. And so it happens quite often.
And how can a company best protect itself to these threats?
Well, I mean, it's a lot about knowing your employees and your the people you're giving you are granting access to. The insider threat is all about rogue, unfortunately rogue, employee that in your accounting department, in your sales team, engineering, or some other trusted position. They have legitimate access to information, but then they end up using it, because they're disgruntled, because they're departing. They end up taking it and using it for unauthorized means. And so you have to know who those employees are. You have to know what their status is. Um, are they disgruntled? Are they at risk? And what are they doing if they are? How are they spending their time on your systems, in your network, in your environment? And so, the first thing you can do, it's pretty common now. We've seen that before you hire an employee, you'll do a background check on them, see what their prior issues are, whether that's reference checks or more common these days. Now you'll do criminal background checks, you'll do credit checks, things like that to see if they're at risk. We often tell organizations to have segmentation or segregation of their systems. And what I mean by that is somebody who's in accounting, they need to have access to the accounting information to do their job. Great, no problem. Make sure they have access to that. But they don't need to have access to engineering's information. And so, does an organization have the segregation needed so that the person in accounting cannot access the information out of engineering, cannot access the information out of sales or HR, or any other department that they don't need access to?
And David, can anything else be done to monitor these high risk employees?
Yeah, so if you have a high risk employee, and that high risk employee you might deem them high risk because of the role they have, in which case they're always high risk, or you might deem them high risk because of something that's happened in the workplace. Maybe they have said some things, and they're unhappy. Their performance is bad, and they might be leaving, or they've said some things to indicate that, or maybe they got passed up for a promotion, and so therefore you feel like they may be unhappy about that. So again, high risk can be a perpetual state or it could be a state that develops based on workplace dynamics. And when you have a high risk employee, there are some things you can do proactively, and some of our sort of are more detailed than others. What I tell organizations is there's definitely a proactive means that you can do, and it should be operationalized. It should be something that organizations adopt as part of their business practices, which is when a high risk employee leaves, their information, their data should be preserved. Okay, so that means all their emails. Make sure their emails and the emails they sent at work are preserved. That's a pretty common thing for people to do just because of business operations. But when I say preserve, I mean preserve it in a way that it isn't touched or modified by anybody. So make a copy of it. Don't just leave it on the server, but make an actual copy and freeze that copy. What I also tell businesses and organizations to do is take their computers and make a copy of their computers, and it should be a forensic copy, and which is something that that a lot of organizations don't do, but can be done, and it can be done fairly inexpensively. But you make a forensic copy, and then just hang on to those things. Put them in a cabinet, so to speak. Put them on a shelf for 6 months, 9 months, and just have it there in case something does happen. Because so many times I've been brought into situations where organization had an at-risk employee leave, And they found out 6 months later they went to a competitor or started a competing organization and started doing things, taking clients, taking employees, and things that led those clients to believe there was some malfeasance going on. And I asked, well, where's their laptop? And unfortunately, the answer more often than not comes back, oh, well, IT repurposed the laptop, erased it, wiped it, and reissued it to the next employee, causing us to lose a lot of evidence, a lot of information to work off of. And then we have organizations that come to me or have employees who become at risk. Again, this is that disgruntled employee, person who got passed up for promotion situation. And if you really suspect that there may be an issue there, I do work with organizations to implement monitoring software, and these are tools that we can put in place that monitor what these people are doing on their computers, on work computers, and work systems, and we can monitor and know exactly what's going on, and we can review that and know what documents they're downloading, what emails they're sending, again, what they're doing on work devices, work systems. That would be sort of borderline into sort of an investigation type of situation where we think these employees, specific employees, might be doing something bad.
And are there more indirect ways companies can protect themselves?
The things that most people I tell most people do are going to be the proactive pieces, the background investigations and things like that, and then the proactive IT policies. Those tend to be fairly simple ways to protect themselves and to sort of have an idea what's going on. That work out for organizations.
And last question, David, how much does culture, for instance, play a part?
Culture definitely does play a part, right? It's important to make sure that organizations educate their employees. What I mean by that is first, make sure that employees realize that what they do on their work systems and on work time and at the behest of their employer is owned by the company. I think there's a cultural piece there where some people don't recognize that this is all done. You're being paid to do this. You would not be doing this if you weren't being paid by your job. You would not have this information. You would not be creating these documents or this work product. And so because you're doing it solely because the work is telling you to do it, and you're being paid by work to do it, it is owned by the company. And I think that there's a cultural piece there where people don't really recognize that. They feel somehow entitled to taking some of this with them when they leave. And so I think that's a huge cultural piece that we need to do. We need to address for staff and employees. And then on the other hand, cultural is, we don't want companies to make employees feel like they work in a police state where all their computers and every button they click is being surveilled and scrutinized. And we don't necessarily want to do that either, right? But again, it's important to make sure that these policies and processes are put in place. The staff is educated and communicated on what these policies are and when things happen and why they happen, and so they understand the boundaries and what goes on and why something might happen. And if they don't do certain things, then it's unlikely to have to worry about things happen, right? So again, make people comfortable at work and feel like they're valued and that they're trusted, but also at the same time make sure they know and recognize that if they do things that causes the employer to feel like they're violating that trust, then there's going to be some monitoring that goes on and some investigating or some checking into their activities that goes on.
Absolutely. Well, that's all I have for today, David. Thank you so much for your time. I hope to see you back real soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jordan.